It is finally here. Diablo 4 Season 7 is about to launch, and rogues, I have the ultimate leveling guide for you. When I level tested this Twisting Blades rogue, it was so strong and it's about to get even stronger. There's a bunch of buffs that are coming to this season. We're going to be running the new and improved Shadow Clone, so we're going to hop into the build guide. Because the servers aren't up and live yet, we're going to be over here on Mobalytics. I have broken down all of my leveling planners this season into different groups to make the leveling process a lot more streamlined so you know exactly where to go. So we're going to break down the planner and I'll show you exactly how this setup works. I have it broken down from level 1 to 25, then level 26 to 40. And because as a rogue, you can get your Dark Shrouds very specific ways, I have two different variants that you can spin off to depending on your luck while you're leveling. We're going to go into the level 41 through 60 with no Umbrous aspect, and then the level 41 to 60 with the Umbrous aspect. They're going to change just a little bit in how you put your skill points in, because you can spec into a new skill if you have this aspect, because you do not need to cast your Dark Shroud. All of the aspects in the first two variants of this planner are all going to be found inside of a dungeon. You do not have to rely on luck in order to put the build together. If you look down here, this is the section that I have listed out every single dungeon where all of the aspects are. If you come into the game here, and you open up your Codex of Power, you can go right into the search function, and we're going to search for enshrouding. That is going to be one of the aspects that are listed. It's going to tell me that I have not unlocked this one yet. So in order to get there, all I have to do is click right here on the map where it says pin to map. All I have to do is click right here where it says pin to map. Then when I open up my map here, it's going to show me exactly where it is with an auto pin. It's a really, really great way to take the planner and go right in game and find exactly the dungeons that you need. I've listed the important aspects right here. This is going to be one of the key aspects for this. This is going to make your Twisting Blades spin around you. So going out and getting this one first, that's how I started my leveling path, and it made a big difference. So this should be the very first one that you do. We're going to hop over to the first variant, and we'll show you exactly how this is going to be broken down. We're going to start with your gear stats, and then we'll go over the aspects, the skills, and then we'll talk about all of the new powers that you're going to be getting along with your runes and mercenaries. Looking at the skill stats, the way that I have broken it down is that it's going to start off with very, very basic affixes and very, very basic tempers. Tempering unlocks at level 10, and you can actually get some incredibly strong tempers right off the bat, even for your level at a very basic temper recipe. When you look at the gear stats for this, you're going to see that we have very, very basic enchants and affixes here. What you're going to be looking for is you're going to be looking for anything with energy per second. It's going to make the early game very, very easy. We're also going to be looking for anything with movement speed, and I've added in a couple of basic tempers. You automatically will get this tempers in when you start the game. The tempers on the very bottom where the weapons are, these are actually incredibly strong. You can temper them at level 10, and at level 10, you'll probably be doing about 10 damage at the most. And this will allow you to do, if I remember correctly, about 250 to 500 damage, depending on the weapon that you're putting it on. You are exponentially increasing the damage that you're doing. So this is going to be something that I know you replace weapons all the time and very quickly, but this temper is going to make getting to those weapon replacements very, very easy. As you go through, anything with resource generation is going to be amazing for you, and then anything with movement speed is going to make the leveling process nice and smooth. For the aspects of this, we're going to start with aspect of might. We're going to be swapping back and forth between puncture and twisting blades, so you're going to always be casting a basic skill. So casting a basic skill is going to grant damage reduction for you. Then we're going to be going with enshrouding. Using a healing potion grants a free Dark Shroud shadow. Each shadow grants up to 4% increased damage reduction. So this is just a little bit of extra layer of defense for you as you go through it, because we use healing potions as we level very often. We're going to be running Blade Dancer. This is what I was talking about here. This makes your Twisting Blades orbit around you when it comes back to you. It deals a bunch of damage as it spins around. Very important because it helps add an aspect of AoE. We're also going to be running Deflecting Barrier. You have a chance after taking damage to gain a barrier equal to 20% of your maximum life. This chance is doubled against distant enemies. Ghostwalker, this is going to increase your movement speed every time that you become unstoppable. Rapid, this is going to give you basic skill attack speed. We're going to be taking Arrow Storm. Lucky Hit, your marksman and your cutthroat skills have up to a 25% chance to create Arrow Storm at the enemy's location, dealing physical damage over 3 seconds. We are going to be using both marksman and cutthroat, so we are going to have a very good chance of spawning these arrows for additional damage. Retribution. Distant enemies have a 10% chance to be stunned, and you're also going to deal up to 35% increased damage to stunned or knocked down enemies. We're going to be running Energizing Aspect. Damaging an elite enemy with a basic skill generates 4 energy. Gain energy after killing an elite with a basic skill. Ravenous. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants increased energy regeneration. Aspect of Umbral. You're going to restore primary resources when you crowd control an enemy. So now we're going to hop into the skill tree. So the way that this is going to break down, I didn't put all of the points in here because when you hit the level 41 variant, things are going to change depending on what you have found. We'll go over that when we get to the end of this skill tree, and then we'll swap into the next variant. Up here, there's going to be a leveling path. If you click on the leveling path, it's going to bring up very specifically where I put the points as I leveled. If you just fill out every single point here as you go down, you're going to run out of points before you get some of the most important abilities in your skill bar. So follow along with this as we go so that you know when and where to put your points in. Now through the rest of the planner, I'm only going to go over the skills as I come to them. Remember, follow along with the leveling path because we're not going to put in exactly what you're going to see next. You're going to follow that path. We're going to be going into Twisting Blades. We're going to put 5 points here, and then we're going to go all the way up through Improved Twisting Blades. Enemies are dazed for 1.5 seconds while impaled with Twisting Blades. We're going to do 3 points into Sturdy. You're going to gain 18% increased damage reduction. 1 point into Siphoning Strikes. On a lucky hit chance, critical strikes against close enemies have an 85% chance to heal you for 1% of your maximum life. We're going to be taking Shadow Step, and then we're going to go all the way up through Methodical Shadow Step. After Shadow Stepping, you gain 20% damage reduction, so a little bit more damage reduction. This is also going to be our source of Unstoppable. Every single time that you use Shadow Step, you become unstoppable. If you're frozen, stunned, anything, you can use Shadow Step to get out of that as well. We're going to be coming down into Weapon Mastery. Gain a bonus based on the weapons used in your attack. So depending on what you have equipped and what you have found, you're going to get different bonuses per weapon. We're going to be running Tri Attacks. Dazing or stunning an enemy increases your critical strike chance by 6% and your critical strike damage bonus by 6% for 5 seconds. Those both can go up to 36%. We're going to do Unstable Elixirs. Using a healing potion stuns the surrounding enemies for 2 seconds and increases your damage by 18% for 10 seconds. Balestra. Gain 12% increased damage for 4 seconds after using Evade. We're going to go 1 point into Agile so that we can take Evasive. After dodging, you gain an extra 6% damage reduction for 4 seconds. 1 point into Dark Shroud. This is the ability that's going to give you a ton of damage reduction, and depending on what you find through the leveling process, it's either going to be on your skill bar or it won't be. We're going to come all the way down through Subverting Dark Shroud. You heal 10% of your maximum life when a Dark Shroud is removed. As you cast Dark Shroud, surround yourself with 5 protective shadows, gain 8% damage reduction per active shadow. Each time you take direct damage, that damage is reduced and the shadow is consumed. Now, when you add Enhanced Dark Shroud into this, you're going to have a 15% chance for that shadow not to be consumed, and you're going to gain 5% increased movement speed per shadow that's on you. Coming down, we're going to be going into Poison Imbuement. Imbue your weapons with lethal poison. Your next 2 imbuement skills deal poison damage and apply 100% of their base damage as additional poison damage over 6 seconds. Coming down to Enhanced Poison Imbuement, casting Poison Imbuement generates 30 energy, increased by 2 for each nearby poisoned enemy. Blended Poison Imbuement, your critical strikes with Poison Imbue skills deal 75% increased damage. We're also going to be going into Deadly Venom. You deal 18% increased poisoning damage. We're going to go 3 points into Impetus. After moving 15 meters, your next core or ultimate skill deals 24% increased damage. While this damage bonus is ready, your basic, agile, and subterfuge skills deal 15% increased damage also. And now we're going to be taking Shadow Clone. This has got some buffs in the new season. We're going to be putting 5 points into here. You gain a new additional power at 5 points into your ultimate skill. Casting Shadow Clone will daze surrounding enemies for 3 seconds and deal 200% increased damage to them. Your Shadow Clone becomes a cutthroat skill on cast. Prime Shadow Clone. You gain Stealth and Unstoppable for 5 seconds after casting Shadow Clone. Supreme Shadow Clone. Your Shadow Clone deals an additional 20% of your damage. And finally, we're going to be taking Close Quarter Combat. Damaging a close enemy with a Marksman or Cutthroat skill each grant you 15% attack speed bonus for 8 seconds. While both attack speed bonuses are active, you deal increased damage equal to 25% of your damage first close bonus. So that's going to take us to the end of this variant. Now, depending on if you find the Umbrous aspect or if you don't find the Umbrous aspect, that's where you're going to go into the different skill trees. What the Umbrous aspect does, if we go down here and we look at it, Lucky hit chance. Critical strikes have up to a 65% chance to grant a free Dark Shroud. Now we no longer need to cast Dark Shroud. So what you're going to end up doing is that we're going to be going into Caltrops. So Caltrops is going to go all the way down through Methodical Caltrops. This will change your Caltrops into cold damage and chills enemies. So this will add a whole nother layer of damage that we can do as we go down the tree. We're going to end up taking points into Stutter Step. Critically striking an enemy is going to grant 15% movement speed. Coming down, we're going to be going 3 points into Frigid Finesse. You deal 15% increased damage to chilled enemies. This bonus is going to be increased to 30% against frozen enemies. So that's where your Caltrops comes in. It's going to be a trap that you put on the ground. You no longer get knocked back with the Caltrops trap. It's a brand new mechanic this season. So this is going to be your increased damage from Caltrops. Then we're also going to be going into Alchemical Advantage. Dealing poison damage increases your attack speed and lucky hit chance by 3% for 8 seconds, up to 5%. We're also going to be adding on Exploit. You deal 24% increased damage to healthy and injured. Then Malice. You deal 9% increased damage to vulnerable and 9% increased damage to knockdown enemies. These bonuses can be applied simultaneously. So that's going to be the difference in your two different planners. So depending on if you find Umbros or not, you're going to go into each one of those respective trees. So now let's take a look at the runes. Coming down to the bottom here, I went with very, very basic runes that I found while I was leveling. We're going to be running Yax and Lum. This means that every single time you use a healing potion, you're going to get back primary resources. And we're going to be running Kur or Sir and Gar. This is going to give us increased critical strike chance whenever we cast 5 skills. For the Occult Gems, how this is going to work, you're going to pair up your Occult Gems with your Witch powers. So starting with Wicked Pack, your non-unique Eldritch Witch powers gain 25% increased potency. Anything that is not up here is going to be a non-unique, and we're going to have 1, 2, 3 Eldritch powers. The reason that we're going to have 3 Eldritch powers, Killing Ward. While you have 3 or more Eldritch powers socketed, gain 25% increased movement speed and 25% critical strike chance. So we have those 3. And then our last one is going to be Hungering Void. While you have an aura active, pull nearby enemies towards you every 8 seconds. This is going to be our aura here. How this works, as soon as you damage an enemy, they're affected by the Aura of Lament. It's going to slow them and any enemy around them. You're going to gain 3 primary resources per second per enemy that is inside of that aura. That can only happen once every 30 seconds. If the initial enemy dies, that lament is going to be passed on to another enemy as long as there's another enemy around. When you hit rank 15, because you can level up your witch powers, you're going to apply that aura to 2 different enemies at a time instead of just 1. For Wave of Woes, this is going to deal shadow damage to enemies. At rank 5, every single time that this bounces around, because your Wave of Woes will bounce to different enemies, it's going to do 15% increased damage as it echoes. If you're fighting a single target, it can echo 5 times still and will do 15% increased damage every single time that it echoes. We're going to be doing Hex of Whispers. Damaging an enemy with the Hex of Whispers will apply that hex to them. Whenever you do damage again, that is going to now jump from another enemy after it does shadow damage to them. This can jump up to a maximum of 6 times. The hex can only be applied once every 5 seconds. At rank 7, after bouncing between 6 enemies, it's going to come back to you. It's going to fortify you for 15% of your maximum life, and then it's also going to remove all of the crowd control and negative status effects. Fire Bats, this is going to happen once every 3 seconds. It'll deal damage, and it's going to stun the enemies as well after it's been hit 5 times. Shaken Soul, Eldritch effects apply vulnerable damage to the enemies for 9 seconds. At rank 10, damage from your Psyche and Growth and Decay effects will apply vulnerable at half the duration. So whenever we do damage with any of our witch powers, now they're going to apply vulnerable damage. Fire Bats, Hex of Whispers, and Wave of Woe will all apply damage, so that way we're going to be constantly doing damage to vulnerable enemies only. So now let's look at the mercenary choices here. For the mercenaries, we're going to be running Rahir. This is going to give us a great source of defense. If you want to run something different, you absolutely can, but Rahir gives you armor, it gives you a taunt, it gives you fortify, and can also give you increased damage. So this is a really great option for you. Variana, we're going to be running Bloodthirst as your opportunity. That's additional attack speed anytime that you use Puncture when it's not on cooldown. And the final thing that I have for you, it's going to be on the very bottom here. I'm going to have a leveling document. This is going to be incredibly important for this build and for this season. This is your leveling document right here. This has all of my leveling builds listed out right here if you wanted to try any of the other classes. It also gives you a breakdown of what to do when I have how-to guides, we have interactive maps, all of the stuff that you need to know about the new content, what a gear check is, when to do it. There's a lot of really great information in here. So if you want to, go check this out, and hopefully you find this very helpful. That's all I got for you. Please get out there, enjoy this new Twisting Blades Rogue. It's going to be a ton of fun. This is one of my favorite Rogue builds. I'm going to be live at the launch of the season. I would love for you to stop by and say hi. I'm also live every night. Stop by, say hi, theorycraft with me. Catch you on the clip side.